Okay, so if you didn't know, Hakita and Victoria, another Ultrakill dev, have been working on revamping a lot of the old levels to bring them up to the same visual clarity as, like, Violence. Because Violence was such a big step up for the visual clarity of Ultrakill. So what this means is all of the levels in Prelude, Limbo, and I believe Lust and Gluttony, but I might be wrong on that one. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. So basically all of Act 1 is getting a large visual overhaul. Right, like a big visual overhaul to bring all of the old levels in the game up to the same standard as the new levels in the game. What this means in practice is we're going back to, you know, level 1 Heart of the Sunrise, and I mean immediately you can look at the trees, right? Like, these are night and day compared to the trees that we have now. Like, the leaves being like semi-transparent instead of just blocks, and the trees actually kind of look like trees, like the bark kind of looks like actual bark. It's crazy. The tree looks good. It's crazy. It looks better than the trees in Pokemon for the last like 5 years, so I think this is a win. But what I personally like more is this. The Limbo screens have got a huge overhaul. So instead of just being like a bit of a mess of colour, they actually look like an extension of the level, as if like the world keeps going beyond what we can actually play in, which I mean obviously it doesn't, that's the whole point of the screen. But it gives off that illusion much better than it does currently. And everything in here has a weird, like, distorted look. Right, like you see on the edges, I think it's called chromatic aberration, where like the colours start to like bleed off of the edges of the objects on the screen. It gives all of this stuff like an old, like a super old colour TV like effect, right? Like it looks like it's from an old TV, which I like a lot. I think it gives. No, thanks, Kita. I think it gives a lot to the look of the level. But you know, the leaves now as well. Going back to the trees, how exciting! The leaves aren't solid anymore. They actually function like leaves. You don't just like get stopped with like a brick on them. But you know, we can see here, right, all of like the textures in the level have been enhanced and made like higher quality. The geometry looks like just a little bit more like deep and complicated, just to give it like a little bit extra bit of pizzazz. But the layout is still unchanged. The level is still the same. The encounters are still going to be the same. So the level's unchanged in terms of gameplay. It's entirely in terms of the visuals that the level has been changed. And I think Hakita he runs through the level until he ends up just killing himself here in an incredible display of skill. Thank you, Hakita. Very cool, very cool. Thank you for teaching new players how to play Ultrakill. But you know, it's not just Limbo that is getting an upgrade, as I said earlier. Prelude is probably getting the biggest overhaul that we've seen so far. I mean, look at this. O-4 is unrecognizable. You've got moving like pistons everywhere. Just an ominous like orange haze on top of steam, and like a heat haze going everywhere to distort your vision. Because the whole point of this level is it's now based off of like heat, right? Like the theme of O-4 is heat, which is why it's all orange and it's got heat haze and everything's wavy. It's the steam everywhere. It looks like you're kind of like traveling into like a volcano, which sort of makes sense with how much lava's in Prelude. You know, I never really understood why there was so much lava in Prelude, but now it makes sense. Also, we've got this major point of contention, as far as I was aware, the cooling chamber. Just a silly little gimmick, just, you know, a silly little thing they added in. But people were complaining a lot about this, as far as I was aware, because of this. It closes a door on you. And people were thinking like, oh, it's gonna affect speedruns. It's gonna make it so like this version of the game is gonna be objectively slower to speedrun, but as is shown later on in this video, you can just shoot the glass to skip it, so it's kind of irrelevant. But yeah, I feel like it's not gonna be that big of a deal. But I mean, looking at this room, like, look at this. This looks amazing, right? Like, all of the metal is like glowing from how hot everything is. It's just a glowing, spinning tunnel. I mean, it's night and day compared to what we have currently. It's not even close. It's such a huge upgrade. And I think Akita goes off into the side room with the Maurice. Not much different in this room. Again, it's just you know, the addition of the heat haze and the orange glow, and a bit of steam here and there. And the same is true for the final room, right? Like, it's not massive, but it's more than enough to completely change like the feel of the level. And I think right at the end, is it right at the end? Where was it? There's somewhere where he shows off right here. You could just shoot glass and run through like it's nothing, so it's really not that big of a deal. I'm sure it'll be fine. So, you know, moving on, right, with the theme of heat and lava, right, this guy, Action Dog, has been doing a lot of work on lava, as you can see here from 1-3. I mean, you could see, like, you know, the lava's actually flowing. It looks like an actual liquid instead of being like a static texture. And I mean, ignoring the lava for a second, right, the room itself is now like in a spiral shape, whereas before it was very blocky, very square. It just, this comparison, like the before and after, is just crazy to me. Like, when we go back to the new, just look at that, looks so much better in every way. It's not even close. Like, the lava like actually bubbles and moves and ripples and flows, whereas before it was just static, you know. I mean, look at this guy. Look at this little guy. Look at how happy he is. Look at him. His home is just, it's so much nicer now. Look at it. Everything is just, it's so much nicer now. He's upgraded from like living in like a bungalow to living in like a 3-bedroom house, you know what I mean? Like, he's eating good. He's eating good. But there's a little bit more in terms of screenshots here, right? We've got a very big image in terms of 1-2. This is the first room in 1-2. I mean, just look at it, right? And again, compared to what we have currently in game, it's not even close. All of the textures, not only do they look better, but they look like a higher resolution. Again, like the screens being changed, just, I love the screen change so much. I think it adds just so much to the atmosphere of Limbo, and it definitely makes it a strong contender for not being the worst layer in the game anymore, because it kind of sucks as it is currently. And then there's a more like full view of the 1-3 room that we saw earlier, and it looks so good. I don't know why, but changing it to be like a more fluid spiral staircase just adds so much over what we have currently. And then this is a big one. As you can see here, he says we're putting a bit more emphasis on the meat in the meat grinder, which is why I think, right, looking at this screenshot, I think maybe all of the prelude levels are going to be following like theme. So, you know, O-4's theme is heat, O-2's theme is going to be like blood and meat and just gore flowing around the level, as you can see here. You know, just all sorts of stuff floating around everywhere that isn't present in the original version. And where O-4 now has like an orange glow for the heat, O-2 now has like a sinister red glow for all the blood. So maybe the other prelude levels are going to have like a theme attached to them. Maybe not, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But the big change here is Cerberus. He's buff now, right? Like, he's been hitting the gym. He's jacked up, right? He's a buff boy. I don't know if this I'm assuming this is going to be like a game-wide retexture, right? Like this is just the new Cerberus texture. Like how Hideous Mask got a texture update recently. I'm assuming it's not just going to be this one Cerberus. That wouldn't make much sense. But you never know with this. You never know with Hakita. Maybe he just thought it'd be funny to make this one Cerb look different. You never know. And then finally... Oh, never mind. These Cerbs are also buffed. So it's not just a one and done thing. All of the Cerbs look like they're going to be changed. And also the Crusher... Oh, this looks just... It looks... The lights and the extra depth it adds to this thing just makes it look so much better. Everything about this update, at least for me, just screams like quality, like a good thing. Where like everything about this is good. I like it. But I think like some people think there's a certain charm to like Ultrakill's like retro, like straight out of a PS1 graphics. And they might think that this update harms that visually. I'm gonna have to disagree with that. I think like, you know, higher graphical fidelity is just a good thing. Making the game look nicer is a good thing. But I do think that it puts Act 2 in a very weird spot, right? Like if you think like Limbo, you know, Limbo looks like this now. You know, like Limbo, this is the new Limbo, right? Like this is the, oh that's a bad, this is the new Prelude, right? And of course we have Violence, which is its own thing. Act 2 is gonna be kind of underwhelming. It's gonna be like the odd one out in terms of visuals, right? So maybe eventually we'll see an Act 2 revamp alongside the Act 1 revamp, maybe not. We'll have to wait and see what Hakita decides to do. But I wouldn't expect this update for a while, because just from reading this, it seems like Hakita and Victoria are working on this at the same time as the enemy rewrites, which has been going on for a long time. So I'm thinking that maybe the enemy rewrites and the visual update will come in the same update, although we might see them in different updates. I don't know. Potentially there'll be different updates, but I think most likely they'll be the same update, and I'm not expecting it anytime too soon, but potentially before the end of the year, definitely. Like before Fraud comes out and Treachery comes out. But yeah, I mean that's about it. That's all we have so far. That's all we have in terms of videos and screenshots and teasers as far as I'm aware. You know, leave your thoughts on what you think of the new visual style in the comments. I'd love to see what people think about them. And subscribe, because I told you to. You know, you can't argue with that. But yeah, thanks for watching.